Well, thanks, Fred, for that kind introduction. Now I feel a whole lot of pressure here this afternoon. But look, good afternoon. It's an absolute pleasure to be here in London today. And first and foremost, it's just great to have these types of conferences and events. And I must admit that the prior speaker now has made me utterly scared of getting back on the internet. But I think it's wonderful that the Luxury Law Summit today is actually focused on the digital revolution. And frankly, who would have ever thought, like a couple of years ago, that a group of professionals from the luxury industry would be gathered here in London today in this phenomenal hotel to really think about the world and about digital and where it's taking you. So I applaud the organizers for being forward-thinking, because honestly, what I'm going to share with you today hopefully opens your eyes to the world that we are very much living in. So I always like to start out with this quote by a fellow Australian. I am an Aussie who happens to live in Texas, but works for a company based out of New York. But I admire this chap here, Luke Williams. I think this quote pretty much summarizes what I'm going to cover for you today, which is to compete today, all of you really need a revolution in your thinking. You need a disruptive set of strategies and unexpected solutions to stay ahead of the game. The challenges that we face today are by no means, I think, potentially some of the most unfounded, uncharted in our careers. But let me back up here for a second. I'm not going to take for granted that all of you in the audience today are sitting here saying this afternoon, I really need more of this artificial intelligence, robotics process automation, this cognitive computing thing. I mean, I could just kind of sit here and wait it all out. This thing's a fad. How many of you here lived through Y2K? How many folks? Let's do a show of hands. So what happened? Nothing. It was a big fat nothing, right? We all sat there waiting to press that button, the year 2000, thinking, my gosh, nothing. So you could take that approach. But I'm sure that every single one of you in the audience today, you all are here because you care about growth. And if you care about growth, you need a fundamentally different way and a toolkit of disruptive technologies to enable you to compete in this world today. So let me share some of that insight in terms of what is driving some of those trends. I like to talk about, now let me just see here, my clicker is going the wrong way. There we go. Let me talk a little bit about some of those trends that are not just technological, but also socio and economic, that are really underneath of what's driving this revolution that we are in right now. And some might argue that we're in probably the most profound industrial revolution. And in fact, I would say we're very much deep into the fourth industrial revolution. And if you think about it, the first industrial revolution came with the steam engine. People moved to cities. The second revolution was driven very much by electricity. And today, this digital revolution is being driven by all the technology that we're seeing happen around us. So let's look at some of those trends. I love this framework. I think it really puts in perspective the kind of magnitude of the impact that is happening out there. The first one is megacities. By the year 2030, there will be more than 8.5 billion people on this planet. And guess what? They're all living in big cities like the one you're in today. And in fact, I was in China just recently. China is preparing for cities of over 100 million people. And those cities are going to be smart cities. They're not going to be cities of the past where life was difficult to get by. These cities are going to be enabled by technology. With that, that's impacting manufacturing. We're seeing the impact of 3D starting to rise. And then what I'm going to talk about today is the impact of automation. Automation is beginning to affect every single part of our life. And as a group here that is very vested in the luxury industry and obviously vested in your profession from a legal perspective, automation is having a tremendous impact on the work that you do. And then finally, sustainable energy. As I landed this morning, I landed from Houston, Texas. I was walking through Heathrow, and I was just so impressed to see all the banners, all the advertising around sustainable energy, and the fact that this city by 2025 wants more than 30% of the population to commute on a train. So you know what I did this morning? I took the train. How many of you take Uber? Who took an Uber to this event? Not as many as you might see in the United States, but Uber and Lyft are frankly changing the way we think about consumption of transportation, and the gig economy is becoming part of our lives. And in fact, just to give you an example of what this means, some say that by 2020, which is only a year away, we're likely to have more conversations with bots than we do with our spouse. And in fact, my husband would say in our house, that's already happened. Being in the robotics industry, we spend a lot of time in our household talking about bots. So if you think about it, these changes are happening not just in terms of technology, but they're happening at a pace and a scale that many of us have never seen before in our lives. So what does this all mean? How many of you here have children that are 7 years or under? Quite a lot. I'm actually the mother of 7-year-old twins. And does anybody know what that generation is called? I'll give you a hint. It's on the slide. It's the alpha generation. So for this generation, let me show you something here. Does anybody know what, if you showed this to an alpha child, what they might think this is? Now, I know it's very obvious. Yes, it is the event catalog. So it was so what would they think? You know what this is? This is an iPad that does not work. For my children, and for many of you in the audience today, courtesy of Steve Jobs, the only thing they know is this. It's touch. Mum, I want to touch your phone, touch your watch. So just imagine, that generation has grown up knowing nothing more than touch. And what kind of impact is that generation likely to have on your business? So I wanted to put up this paradigm here today to kind of share with you how your industry is being impacted, because you're not alone. And in fact, I would argue that the luxury industry is moving and will be impacted by these megatrends at a phenomenal rate. The statistics say that by 2025, more than half of what's consumed online will potentially be luxury goods. So you can imagine what those consumers and how those consumers are really thinking about buying. First of all, they're going to expect that you're using artificial intelligence. They're going to expect that they will be able to communicate through voice to make some of those purchasing decisions. They're going to expect that you understand who they are, what their buying preferences are, how they think about life. This is fundamentally going to change a lot of the strategies in your business. And moreover, what's very profound is the generational shift. Take a look at this slide. I think it's very meaningful. 85% of those global luxury sales are going to be made to an entirely different generation, many of which are not even in the room today. Millennials, Gen Zers, will be the ones that determine the success of your industry. So with these trends emerging on top of you, how do you think about your business and your profession? So preparing for this event, in fact, some of the event organizers mentioned it would be helpful to give the team in the room who have a legal background some thoughts about how prepared are you in terms of the legal profession for this digital transformation. And I took the liberty, Fred, of looking at an Oxford collaboration here with Deloitte, which I think indicates overall that technically the profession feels like we've got the skills. But frankly, when you kind of go all the way to the right-hand side, we're probably not really ready for what's about to happen. We probably don't know exactly what to do or how to approach that. So what I'd like to do today is kind of share with you some thoughts around how automation can really transform your world. So can we roll the video, please?
Do you know why robots are here? So we are free to do the things we love. So so we don't spend hours and days and weeks doing one tedious thing after another.
So we have time to think, to be creative, and pursue new ideas. What took hours now takes minutes. What was pretty accurate is now perfectly accurate.
Can you imagine what we humans can achieve if we are powered by that kind of speed and accuracy?
Robots automate display ads in Google AdWords in 3 seconds. I take 10 to 30 minutes. So what do I do with the extra time? I strategize. I write. I fine-tune audience targeting so the ad becomes more effective.
Robots update legal documents to the latest version at any point of time, so I don't have to. So I get more time to think of complex legal arguments that win.
Robots translate customer requests to English and route them accurately to me, so I can spend time offering the best response fast, rather than scramble for translations.
The truth is, this is the ultimate collaboration, robots and humans. Robots do all the boring, backroom stuff, so we don't have to. We can dream big and push ourselves to be our best versions. We can create amazing new things and keep growing our people and our customers, so that everyone progresses, everyone wins. We started as 10 people, and now we are the fastest growing enterprise software company in history.
So hopefully I've whet your appetite for why automation really matters. And let me share a personal story. When I wake up in the morning, I have a robot on my laptop that runs my email. The robot actually conducts sentiment analysis to determine what messages I need to answer in the morning. In addition, the robot helps filter my expense reports, procurement approvals to make me more efficient. And I cannot tell you what a world of difference that has made to my day. I graduated from the United States from a master's in business more than 20 years ago. And when I graduated, my first job at a technology company was to make pivot tables. I spent 7 years at university studying liberal arts, economics, then a master's degree, to make pivot tables, to cut and paste data, and to work 14 hours. I made a personal decision to join and to do what I do because I wanted to make a difference to the future of work for my own children. I hope they never have to work the way I worked. And I hope for many of you here in the audience today that you will consider automation as a ways to improve your workflows and to improve your business strategy. And I'm going to give you a very compelling reason as to why the time is of essence. Today, many of us are very familiar with the world of continuous improvement. We've spent years perfecting processes, getting things right. Robotics process automation, which is really where software bots mimic human actions, provides potentially the gateway into cognitive computing and into artificial intelligence. It's very difficult to build artificial intelligence without a level of automation. And some might even say that RPA is potentially the gateway drug for AI. Henceforth, understanding and being able to build out automation in your own functions and organizations will enable you to scale your business in the future into areas such as artificial intelligence. But you're probably wondering, why me? What kind of benefits do I get from this? First and foremost, as you saw in the video, obviously it creates efficiency. It saves time. I've built hundreds of bots in my career, saved thousands of hours, but I can tell you my biggest journey and some of the biggest lessons I got were around the effectiveness impacts. I never realized that my processes could be 100% accurate. I lived in a world where I ran cash application transactions for one of the world's largest computer companies, and I was comfortable with 99.01% accuracy. After we implemented robotics, we moved to 100% accuracy. But I think the biggest impact that I failed to understand was the impact on people. Just like I described as a graduate from university, people are sick of doing mundane, boring work. And there is an opportunity to take that mundane work away and to help people do the things that we were meant to do, to provide value to our companies, to use our minds in the way that we trained them. So I encourage you to give some thought as to how this might look inside of your organization. So I put together a few thoughts of what's impacting the legal function. And you can see today, obviously, we've just spoken about cybersecurity, but cloud and mobile has got to be big. Everything is moving to this device. Auditors are running audits from smartphones. Law firms are becoming virtual. Cybersecurity, as you've just heard, is no longer just something to read about. It's a real threat that you need to consider. And moreover, you're surrounded by all this data. What are you going to do with this data? How are you going to use it? You have no choice but to start to build out capabilities that enable you to do performance management, that enable you to think about data analytics. With that said, I thought I'd put together, because I knew I was with a group of attorneys and lawyers today, perhaps a process taxonomy of what your business might look like. And this is a really simple process chart that kind of illustrates what some of the core legal functions in any enterprise might do. And I actually host the legal function for my company today in the United States. And what I've put here are areas that you might think about applying robotics. So look for the little bot, and you can see that's the spots where today, right now in the world, robots are being used. So you can see, for example, in drafting and document management, contract negotiation, bots are being very heavily deployed. If you look at matter management and e-billing, in the areas of workflows, and then once again, as you get into IP, I know this is an area that Fred's very interested in, you can see here in the process data, and then similarly in collection, and then also in regulatory areas. So look, just an enormous amount of opportunity already being developed inside the legal areas. So I would encourage you to start to think about how might you think about applying robotics to your own organizations. But with that said, it's going to take some change. I'm not going to admit that transforming and moving your organization into the digital world is really easy. It's something that takes profound commitment. First and foremost, you need to imagine the world you want to live in. And then you've got to be intellectually curious. You don't get to this point without understanding some of those technologies that are in the world that are moving around you. You've got to have to pick up new tools and techniques, design thinking, break some of the rules. I know that's probably very hard for lawyers to consider, but breaking some of the traditional boundaries of the way that you've approached work. And then thinking about AI. AI is real. AI is here. It's being used in many organizations, and really embracing it and understanding how do you encapsulate AI into your business and your industry. And moreover, you're going to have to take charge of your own destiny. Otherwise, somebody will do it to you. So in conclusion, we are in the midst of one of the most profound moments in our careers and our history. The opportunity for reinvention for all of you is around today. Please take advantage of this moment. It's been a pleasure spending time with you this afternoon, and I hope, Fred, we've got a few minutes for some questions.